Hello, friends, and welcome to FM On Demand with Tara Fitzpatrick, the podcast of Food Management Magazine. And I am, of course, your host, Tara Fitzpatrick. I am super excited for this podcast that we have for you today. We are heading to Alaska. Let's go. Let's go north. And we're talking to Senior Area Executive Chef Amy Foote. She's with the Alaskan Native Tribal Health Consortium's medical campus. And we first met her back in 2016, and we were finding out about the healing powers of the indigenous foods that are up there in Alaska and what she had learned, how she incorporates that into healthcare. Just to give you an idea, she gave us some recipes back then, and those are linked for you here. There's wild nettle, smoked salmon, pesto linguine, herring egg salad, fiddlehead fern pizza, things, and a few more. So be sure to go and check out her recipes because it's a whole different world up there. And she's getting us caught up on what she's been doing lately, which is, as you can imagine, they have a short outdoor growing season. So she wants to get more microgreens into the healthcare system that they grow right there. And we talked about some other stuff too. I just always have a ton of questions, like everyday occurrences that we wouldn't, like seeing a bear or a moose. And we talked about being moms too, because like when I became a mom, it made me connect with like the animal kingdom in a crazy way. Like I felt and still do feel like an animal. And when I see a mama cat, like with her babies and she looks exhausted, I'm just like, yes, mama, it's something that we related to that. And she did say that a mama moose is much scarier than a mama bear. So we didn't even know about the mama moose, but please enjoy our conversation. I think it's a fun mix of healthcare and just the adventure of living in Alaska and food service. So thanks so much for listening and watching.
I've got some exciting news from Mondelez Food Service, the maker of Oreo cookies, Chips Ahoy, Sour Patch Kids, and so many of the iconic snack brands we know and love. They've just launched 1-ounce Belvita cinnamon brown sugar snack packs. Available in bulk cases, these USDA Smart Snack approved packs are great for schools, hospitals, and really any operator who wants to offer customers a tasty treat. Ask your Mondelez Food Service sales rep how you can bring these better for you bites to schools, healthcare, and more, or visit mdlzfs.com/Belvita today.
Thank you so much for being here. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. Good morning. Well, it's morning here, I guess.
And yes, so it's 2 p.m. in Ohio and morning in Alaska. So cannot wait to hear more about Alaska. And the first time that you and I connected, it was way back in 2016. I couldn't believe, I looked back the first article that I wrote about your amazing operation, what you have going on there. And we talked about so many different things, indigenous foods and healing and all of those things. And you're getting more now, even into the agricultural side of it a little more. So
a lot has changed since we talked last. A lot.
Yes, let's catch up. Like, tell me, like, what's been happening?
Oh boy. So, I think when we had talked last, I was talking about some of the meats I think we had gotten a moose donation, or it was a roadkill moose. But since then,
it was like they found a moose on the road, and you knew what to do. You sprung into action.
Yeah. So since then, we've really worked at developing a relationship with the Professional Hunters Association. So we're continuing to get proteins in that way. And so that's like caribou and moose and even seal. So we have some native hunters that go out and harvest seal because that's a traditional food for our patients here at the hospital. It's one of our more requested items, and you can't purchase it. So that's why we have this really awesome program to do this. So, those are kind of the proteins. I've been working with obviously always buying Alaskan and wild caught and working with native fishermen whenever we can. The plants never sort of kind of came in large donations. And so, as we started looking at that, we thought, we'll get some teams together and we'll go out and we'll harvest. And really, if we go out and start harvesting from our wild crops aren't going to be there very long. And so I really reflected on that quite a bit, and then also I don't want to impact the ancestral harvesting grounds of Alaska Native people. Like I don't want to go out and take your berry patch that you and your grandma and your auntie
Oh yeah, you're always
ancestors,
you're very
right?
conscious of that stuff. Absolutely. Yeah.
So it was really important to me that we figured out a different kind of way to do it. And so there's some soil agriculture that goes on in very, short periods of time in Alaska because we're
right.
dark, long winters and cold, right? And we have these moments of constant light where we can do some great soil farming. And so actually, I guess it was Tuesday this week, we went out to we started this last year, so this is year 2, and we, in conjunction with their experimental farm, it's the Matsu Valley Experimental Farm and Extension Center, it's a mouthful. The University of Alaska Fairbanks runs that, and they do a plot of experimental potatoes in. So they had 137 varieties, but we planted 139. 2 of the other varieties that we did kind of some large plots, and we used our seed potatoes from last year are a Tlingit and Haida potato, so 2 separate varieties, which would be an ancestral variety. We got them from the state plant materials center where they keep kind of this seed stock, so to speak, this plant stock
where people
alive in the state.
Yeah.
So really cool. Last year we were able to get like 250 pounds. I'm gonna guess that I'm hoping, right? It's year 2, so we're hoping for a larger harvest of that. They're a smaller, a little larger than a fingerling potato, and they're really, really knobby, so they're difficult to peel. But that's okay. We don't need to peel them, right? We can eat our peels, and we can eat our vitamins. So. So we got those in the dirt, and we're excited about that. And then it's been raining since, so that's even better.
Hey, I guess.
Immediate planting, and so that's one of the projects. Another project that we started, I think we're a year and a half into it. So I had a friend of mine that her and I were working on. Kind of just harvesting our own medicines and stuff at the time. And she introduced me to the lady that owns the Space Farming Institute. And so Lori and I became kind of friends and was chatting. And she posted this picture of this gigantic, I called it Jurassic at the time, but it was this huge plantain, which, most people are going to refer to as probably like a weed or a sidewalk crack plant, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it was huge. And I said, wow, we need to
not
work
just
together.
So people listening are picturing, it's not a plantain like a banana. It's those broad leafed little weeds that you see in between sidewalks, right?
Right. And but in Alaska, they're everywhere. And they're very nutritious. They're, really, really nutrient dense. And they're also used in medicine. So topically and those kind of. So she had attempted to grow this hydroponically indoors, and I thought, wow, she's doing this. We have to work together. So that's what I said. We have to work together because there's this dream, right, of being able to get these traditional plants and ingredients in Alaska, and the only way, but nobody cultivates them. So we've run into all these really, as we learn as we go, right? The plants teach us, and so we learn all these different things when we try to grow them. But we ran into you can't find the seeds. They're not commercially available. And so we've had to, get permission or be invited, onto some properties to harvest seeds. We've had groups go out and Alaska Native groups. There's a recovery program group through Cook Inlet Tribal Corporation, and they take groups out and, it's that reconnection to the land and to culture, and they harvest seeds for us. We bring them back, we dry them, and then we try to grow them hydroponically. So things like sourdock, and I'm a big dandelion nerd. I think the whole world is trying to wipe out dandelions, and dandelions continue to grow.
Dandelion world. I want to learn more. What do you like so much about them?
Well, so the dandelion, it's such we use all of these poisons to try to kill them, and they give us.
My neighbors, hello, I see you.
No mow May. I know it's June now, but no mow May, and it's good for the bees too.
I know.
But we so the dandelion root is absolutely a great medicinal. So you harvest the root, you dry it, you can toast it. It gets kind of a bitter coffee to it, full of antioxidants. again, like I said, we try to kill it, but it gives us all these healing properties. And then
Yeah.
from like the food perspective, there's dandelion it's a nice, lightly bitter kind of green.
Yeah, the leaves, the greens themselves. I've seen
Mhm.
that definitely in
And if
salad.
you get them younger, then they're going to taste a little better. There's so many different varieties of dandelions that we've been learning about too. There's one with a red vein, which I've learned, I can't think of the word right now, but anything that has a red in it is going to be higher in it antioxidant. So it's going to be a better, kind of health plant for you. So we've
Okay.
been playing with different varieties of dandelions. Of course, the blooms you can eat as well. So, it's really like a 95% edible plant.
Oh, right, the whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And then sourdough, which I think it just depends on where you are regionally. Growing up in Idaho and in Montana, there was lots of sourdough that grew, mountain sorrel, that kind of thing. And we have that all here as well. And that's kind of it's a little rhubarby. A lot of times you'll hear sourdough
I'm
called
gonna look this
that.
up for sure. And I have this old textbooky thing that was from my grandma York, and
Hmm.
she was a plant lady too. She definitely was like she knew about it. It's called The Magic and Medicine of Plants. It's like, yep. And
Ooh.
I keep it on my desk just to remind me of grandma.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, I'm obnoxious. I'm the one that you like. In my family, everybody's got their kind of like specialized interests, I would say.
Yes.
And a couple years ago, my brother and I went on this trip, and he's like master nerdy birder guy, and like everything he saw was birds, right? And he was like, bird, 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 like he's telling me all the birds, and I'm like, oh, plant, 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 plant,
Uh,
plant.
you have it all
So
covered.
it's kind of funny. I think we're just built this way, but
Mhm.
plants are definitely something that I have a passion for as well. And so as I started working with Lori, we started growing. We started looking at traditional plants and what will grow hydroponically. A lot of them are not annuals, so they take a longer time. We've learned to kind of germinate and grow. So some
Mhm.
of them don't grow into a microgreen really quickly. And then we learned what we call cut and come agains, which means like, can we cut it, and will it grow back? And if it grows back quickly, is it edible? Does it become bitter? Because a lot of plants, if you harvest them as a
Mhm.
defense mechanism, will put out a sour flavor, a bitter flavor. It's
Oh,
really interesting.
they're so wily. It's like, how did they figure out how to do
I
that?
know, and it's so
Like,
neat to
clever,
learn
right? Uh-huh.
as we go along, right? It's so neat to learn. So the lighting. So we've been working with reds and blues and white LED lights, and
Oh
we are.
yeah, I've seen that before. Like sometimes there's like a combination of several of those
Mhm.
too, and like maybe that'll make them grow a certain way. Very cool.
And they taste different. So that's what has been
Um,
really cool, because the chef perspective, it's like, well, that's really
yeah.
neat, but
Like
what
what
does it
flavor
do?
can I get? Yeah, cool.
So we've tried different things, different radishes, and so we do a lot of radish sprouts. Those seem to be a flavor that are similar to beach greens, which would be a traditional food for an Alaska Native person. Depending on where you are in the state, it's all regional, but that's one that's been pretty well accepted, and it seems to grow pretty quickly. We do common things that people will see, different mustards,
Oh yeah, yeah.
different fennels. The
I
red
love
vein
that.
sorrel is my favorite.
Ooh,
I'm
yeah,
sure you've
yeah.
probably seen that. It's really, really has
I
a
think I know what you're
bright,
talking about. Like
deep
leafy.
red vein.
Yes.
Yeah, and so we started growing those, and then we started growing edible flowers too for our patients.
Nice.
Being in a hospital and being in the dark and being, especially in the winter,
I know. To brighten up the
just
day. Yes.
yeah, yeah. So this year, we were able to commercially produce our first crop of fireweed. And in Alaska, fireweed is like, it's a really interesting plant because once it gets to its top and it blooms,
Mm-hmm.
then you know that winter is going to be here soon. And it'll poof and it goes to seed. And so it's something that we kind of have as a barometer of where we are at in our
It
year.
puts
And
on its own
so
little winter hat. It says, I'm ready.
yeah, and it's
I'm
really
ready for winter.
interesting
And it
because
tells you when that's happening. So
yeah, it's part of culture. It's part of living here. It's part of, right? It becomes kind of just like, the leaves start falling on the trees if you're in, a hardwood
yes,
kind
or
of
we
area.
see forsythia is the first flower that we see here in Ohio. It's just yellow. And like you're like, oh my gosh, maybe
Yeah.
winter's ending after all. So it's and
Yeah.
here in June, we're having June. And I went to visit one of my brothers in Minneapolis like a month ago, and they were still deep in winter. Like
Yeah.
we were starting to get a little bit of spring, but they absolutely, I was like, when does spring start here? They were like, oh, another month or so, another couple of
Yeah.
months. So Alaska, even further north. So it's like now the rest of the country, it's starting to get hot here in Ohio. I'm starting to complain already. It's my complaining season already. Because I just run hot. I'm just always,
Yeah.
I'm too hot. But is it like just starting to spring to life there? And this is
Well,
why you need the hydroponics,
in
obviously.
theory, it is.
Yeah.
I will tell you, I was driving in this morning and there was a fresh dusting of snow on
Oh,
the mountains up high,
yeah.
but it got cold
Oh,
and it got snow. And I grow a lot just personally, so I have my garden is out and I spent the weekend getting all my proofing up, but all my cold crops like my cabbages and carrots and beets and all that stuff I got them all on the ground.
yeah.
They're attempting, and now we're getting some rain, which is nice. But yeah, so Alaska is interesting because we start getting lots and lots of daylight, really by like March, and so we have a lot of daylight. We're in our like 2 weeks of the most daylight of the whole year, and then we'll start losing daylight towards the end of the month. Summer solstice is when we
Just the
start
way that the
losing it.
earth, it's so interesting. It's mind-boggling.
Yeah, and it's just a different those type of things. Unless you live in an area that it really affects, you don't even really pay attention to like as much, right? It's not, but Alaska is really a lot about that, and so yeah, year round we have to look at other options, and so we've come up with these microgreens. We're testing different traditional plants because I'm just trying to feed our patients what culturally would be appropriate to them, what they want to eat, what's nutrient dense, all of those things. But if you can't commercially buy them, so we're trying to develop that piece. I do work with, like I said, some soil farms. So that was the experimental farm and extension center. I work with Alaska Pacific University.
Oh, cool.
They have a really large farm. Well, they have a lot of land out there, but they have a farm out there that they're working with us on, and they're putting in 8 plots of traditional plants, and the beauty in all of this is the collaboration. And so Lori at the Space Farm is growing seedlings of these traditional plants that she's had in the lab, and they're going to go out and they're going to get planted in the soil at the farm, so we can measure, we can see how they did, we can do that research, and then all of those foods will be harvested and they'll come back to the hospital and we'll feed them to our patients. So
So cool.
it's
And
pretty
the way
exciting.
yeah, I think it's so fascinating the way that you're cataloging this and kind of saving it, literally saving the seeds. And it's like these plants that are indigenous that could be lost, but it's like maybe you can revive them, like you can save them from getting, lost to time or to the land. That's just so cool.
Well, and I think having the accessibility is key
Yeah.
because, a lot of those items, like you can go to the grocery store here and I can go to the grocery store where you are, and we're going to find the same, 25 things in the store in the produce section. We
Right.
just are there. And so for being able to, there's so many varieties of different plants and melons and lettuces and leafy greens and all of those things, but how we function, it's seemingly right is that we just get these 25 options. And so being able to have that exposure to, I think it's really important to me that we have the opportunity for children to be able to have access to those as well. So one of the projects we work with Lori at Space Farm is actually with the school district.
Oh, yeah.
So we can involve, and of course they love chefs are rock stars, right? So they love having the chef kind of come into the
I know those kids
classroom.
are your biggest fans, I bet.
Yeah, well, and they're really engaged, and then when you add things like the knowledge of where your food comes from, that's a big opportunity for us to educate and to really change someone's life, that it doesn't all just come from the foam package at the grocery store, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and that was
Yeah.
one of the points that you made, like when over the years as I've been getting to know you, is that even though like there's these indigenous ways, it's still a part of America, and it still has the sad diet, the standard American diet, like
Sure.
so pervasive that like people are just eating too much junk food even there. It's like you don't think of it that way, but totally true. So it's like that's one of the things that you've been combating as well, is with the health and having it be part of the culture too. And that's a lot of what I remember. The one thing about the seal soup, where it's such a magic elixir, it sounds like, where I have heard you tell the story of just a gentleman that just was like so just over it being in the hospital, and then he had the soup and he was just like, oh, like, so it
Yeah,
made such a
yeah.
difference. Like,
Well,
I
and
just
it does heal people. Like I said, so we grew this fireweed crop, and I bring it in the kitchen, and a lot of my staff is, we have this amazing, really diverse kitchen, but a lot of the staff is Alaska Native, and there's a group of Alaska Native elders that work in the kitchen as well.
oh,
And
cool.
so I remember looking over, and they were like, "It's February," and they're like, "What? How do you have fire?" And it was blooming, and they were
Oh,
like,
very
"There's
good.
snow on the ground, it's cold,
Oh yeah,
it's
just so
dark,"
out of
and they're like,
place, just so weird.
"How?"
Yeah.
Really confused, and
Oh,
then excited, and then, "Why did you do that, and how did you do that?" And so we
cool.
talked through. We got to have tea, and again, fiery is another one that's like the
Oh
whole
yeah.
plant, pretty much like 95% of it, its
Oh yeah.
biomass is edible or usable in food. So um, it's shocking because it's changed, but it's utilizing some of the technology so
Oh
that we
yeah.
can take on not just the food security issues that we have in our state, which is great. 98% of our fruits and vegetables are all imported. And by the time they
Yep.
get here, they are not great. Like especially the leafy greens and things like that. They're just
Yeah.
at a stage of dead, really, and they don't have the
It's just too
nutrient
far to
con.
go. Yeah.
It is, and
For the
there's just
regular
kind of no
yard.
way to really fix that unless we figure out how to grow it locally. So
Yeah.
that's a big dream I have, and whenever I have an opportunity. So what we're looking and hoping, I've got some people finally listening, I think, and
Mhm.
hoping, is that we're going to work on getting it to start with Anchorage and get a year-round hydroponic kind of leafy green, and of course incorporate the traditional foods, the traditional greens in as much as possible, and continue our research with the hope that we will be able to really impact our food system by having fresh year-round
Yeah.
Alaskan ingredients grown in Alaskan with Alaskan strains, so
Hmm.
maybe it won't be spinach, maybe it'll be sourdough, maybe it'll be some
Oh,
plants that we would see. So
yeah.
hoping that we can increase nutrition and access. And then there's this other piece of helping support food sovereignty for Alaska Native peoples, so taking back that control over the food source as well. And so really you know love to be a part of that.
Yeah, I want to learn more about that. And I think we all should. So we definitely want to learn more and kind of follow up with that and see it also. I really hope that that hydroponic farm, just having that, I hope it really just goes big and it happens for you. It seems like it will. It seems when you set your mind out, you make the stuff work. And I wanted to find out what were some other sort of like culinary things or operations things that you were looking forward to, like just coming right up, some more interesting things that we can look
Well,
forward
we're heading into summer, and so it's fishing season.
to. Yay.
I have, which in Alaska, I always say we live and die by our salmon, and salmon are a struggle. I've had some issues last 5 years throughout the state. In some areas, salmon aren't returning, and so
Yeah.
there's a lot that goes along with that.
Yeah.
I'm working with some of the commercial harvesters
Mhm.
about trying to reclaim things that they would maybe call waste. So
Oh,
I'm working to get fish heads. Fish heads are amazing, and when you cook them down, they're full of collagen. You can
oh yeah.
really
I
healing
like their
broth.
cheeks. Like I know that
Yeah.
halibuts have fat cheek. They have chubby little
Oh,
cheeks.
those are the best. Yeah, we
Halibut
don't
cheeks.
we don't boil those. We just
Yeah.
eat those.
Delicious.
But the halibut head itself, that's another really coveted item. And when you cook all of that down, it turns into this really rich healing broth. And when we're in a hospital or
everything that's
say,
in those bones and just the velvety
yeah.
stuff on the inside. Oh yeah.
And if you're someone that's, seeing an oncologist, you're on chemo, or you're, you need to be adding those back into your body. And so, so I'm working with some of the commercial fishermen to sort of reclaim things that they're considering waste, or that they're treating as waste, that are absolutely edible and healing.
And they'd be happy to
to
probably have it go to a good home too, if they understand what you're doing, what you're trying to do with it, for sure.
Yeah, and so I feel like we're making some ground on that. I did just was able to support an Alaskan Native reindeer herders. Ooh, and I believe this fall they're hoping to have their own USDA processing plant. At this point they don't have a processing plant, but because of how our traditional foods donation program and how that works, we're able to have that processed. I can't sell it, but I can serve it to my patients.
Right.
And so but really exciting things is there's a big push for supporting those. And there's 2 or 3 I know that are looking to start up even more so around the state, and that would be a very lean, high protein, traditional meat or game meat that would develop and they seem to farm well. They've seemed to figure it out on that kind of things. And so I'm sure there's challenges that I'm not representing, but from a chef perspective, but really excited to see the growth and supporting how we can continue to get those for our patients, but also to help develop kind of commerce within our state.
I was going to say good opportunities for people to have jobs too, which like all over the country, big deal, very important. And I wanted, before I forget, I wanted to mention in this past story that I wrote about you, we shared some of your recipes, including fiddlehead fern pizza, hatcher pass salad, wild nettle, smoked salmon, pesto linguine, and herring egg salad. So I'm going to put the links down below in the description to this.
Oh, so great.
People can get those again.
Yeah.
Like, I love the way you tinker with the stuff. And it's like, you've got the flavors, but you also have all these other, I don't know, just elements that you put in it. And I saw that a LinkedIn post that you were tagged in. It was a colleague of yours, and they were saying the Alaskan Native Tribal Health Consortium campus really believes in providing traditional food as a means of health and wellness for our Indigenous community. And they talk about you. Amy really cares about the population they serve while promoting traditional food cuisine. And then they go on, this is really exciting. If anybody's listening and you want to have the adventure of your life and you are in food service, they are hiring.
We are hiring.
Line cooks, lead cook, sous chef, and retail supervisor. Like, if you have the urge just to pack up and go to Alaska, who among us wouldn't want to do that? I mean, so cool.
Well, that's what I did. That's how I ended up here. I will tell you that. I started coming to Alaska when I was 15, and it grabbed a hold of me. It's a really polarizing place. We always say that.
I know.
There's this kind of ongoing, if you come to Alaska, you're either running to something or you're running from something.
Ooh, that's a good one. That's deep.
I ran to it. I didn't run away. I ran to Alaska.
Well, because it's romanticized, I think. And then when people get there, they're like, oh my gosh, this is not...
And you either love the things that make Alaska unique, and kind of still wild and raw, or maybe it's not for you.
I know. But, it's so, I'm going to start out with a visit though, as soon as I can. I definitely want to come up there for sure. And if I do, I'll let you know, because that would be great. Oh, and I have one last question for you. Have you seen any bears lately walking around?
Well, I just got a text last night, actually, that we had, there was a black bear at my neighbor's, and he was heading over our way. So he just waddled kind of your way. Yeah, he just kind of waddled on through the property. Wasn't real huge. But I live out towards in Eagle River, which is just outside of Anchorage. And I live in a pretty heavy bear corridor kind of area. So this weekend we did see a mother grizzly, and she had 3-year-old cubs. They were pretty big cubs with her still. The
scariest kind, a mama bear.
Yeah, but they were older and they were looking pretty good. The moose actually, so it's really interesting, but one of the things that another kind of beauty of Mother Nature is that moose will tend to all give birth around the same time. And it's kind of survival of the species at that point, because if they all drop, then the bears can't go and wipe out every single.
Oh my gosh, I get it. They're pregnancy
So
buddies.
yeah, so it's really
Yeah.
interesting. And so they did that. Oh boy, I guess we're a week and a half, probably maybe 2 weeks into the moose with their little cute little babies running around. But the mama moose, or I would say I would rather cross paths maybe with a mama bear than a mama moose,
Okay.
because the moose are just
Yeah.
there's no stopping. They just get kind of,
Uh-uh.
a mad mama moose is a little,
Oh,
they got a
yeah.
screw loose kind
A
of
mama
thing.
moose.
They do their job very well.
They're just gonna
But
go
there's a lot of
crazy.
moose.
Well,
I think,
when I became a mom, I felt such a connection to the animal kingdom that I never did before. Like when I see a mama cat or something just kind of taking care of her kittens,
yeah,
I'm like, I know what you're going
yeah,
through, mama.
yeah. My son was on a field trip with the camp that he's at, and he said that they were watching these ducks, and then they were kind of walking around to this other side of the lake and not really paying attention. It's a group of kids, and
Oh yeah.
probably not too much older, 19, 18, walking around as their camp counselors to keep them safe, and they weren't really paying attention. And he said that he stopped and he looked down, and there was a duck's nest, and they were trying to hatch. They were, so he said that he said something to the leader, and they stopped and they got to watch this duck peck its way, little wild duck, right? Peck its way. He thought it was the coolest thing. He said, but then the mom that was in the water noticed that they were near their nest.
Oh no.
And even Mama Duck was like, "Get out of here!" She came to.
It's like, your babies are hatching. Get back here,
Yeah.
mom.
Yeah, we're watching, and she just, she said that the Mama Duck just kind of ran them off.
Uh-huh.
Does.
Uh,
So yeah, I mean, there's
love
Alaska
nature.
is this time of year. The bears are definitely awake, and they're up and they're moving around, and the moose are dropping their babies, and I know that fish are showing up. We've had our hooligan, which is kind of a small fish. It's oily. It's kind of like a smelt.
Okay.
Hooligan have come through, so we've had a lot of folks down. You just take these big nets and kind of scoop them out of the. If they're in,
cool.
it's really a lot at a time. But the hooligan have been in, so
So
folks have been
you
out
got to hit
doing
it just
that.
right. You're when you get that barrel of fish. Get that. It's exciting.
It is, and so and those are something that you can get a lot of folks. Then sometimes they'll eat those, but also we use them as bait for fishing later in the
Okay.
season. I have someone that I know that fishes them and brings them back, and they live in the Matsu Valley, so they have kind of rich soil, and they do a lot of their own farming out there, and they actually grind up all their fish.
Oh, okay.
And kelp, and they grind it all up and they till it into their dirt, and they use it as a natural
I was
fertilizer
gonna
too.
say
It's,
that'd be the most amazing fertilizer.
yeah,
How
they
would
have
it
some
stink,
pretty.
though?
They have cabbages that are like
So cool. So
Yeah.
cool. Oh my
100-pound
gosh.
cabbages.
Ah, amazing. We are almost at time, but I could definitely talk to you all day. And I just want to thank you for sharing this corner of the world with me and with our listeners and readers.
Yeah.
Like, we really appreciate it. And we will be back in touch definitely to get
Wonderful.
more recipes, more about healing, more about health. Thank you so much.
You bet, and hopefully someday you can make it up to Alaska.
Absolutely.
I've got some exciting news from Mondelez FoodService, the maker of Oreo cookies, Chips Ahoy, Sour Patch Kids, and so many of the iconic snack brands we know and love. They've just launched 1-ounce Belvita cinnamon brown sugar snack packs. Available in bulk cases, these USDA Smart Snack approved packs are great for schools, hospitals, and really any operator who wants to offer customers a tasty treat. Ask your Mondelez FoodService sales rep how you can bring these better-for-you bites to schools, healthcare, and more. Or visit mdlzfs.com/Belvita today.